Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Buenos dias, damas y caballeros. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sung-Hoon Kim, and I'd like to invite you to the International Civil Aviation Organization's 40th Assembly SkyTalks. Over a 2-week period, we have 68 presentations from aviation industry professionals on different topics within the aviation sector. I would welcome you to check out the ICAO channel on YouTube for more information. This morning is, we are actually day 2, session number 1. Not day 2, sorry, day 6, session 1. And the topic today will be iSTARS, which is a training tool supporting capacity building. We will, our presenter will be Vicky Princz. She is a manager at the Training Design and Development sector. Please welcome Vicky Princz.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for coming. Supporting states in capacity building is one of ICAO's key mandates, and today I'd like to talk to you about how the Global Aviation Training Office, or GAT, supports capacity building through the processes and tools that we use to develop competency-based training packages. You're probably already aware of the challenge that we face. The forecasted growth of global aviation generates a demand for aviation professionals that is projected will exceed the supply. We need to focus on sustainable growth, and sustainable growth relies on the availability of qualified and competent personnel to fulfill all of the roles of civil aviation. How does GAT support this or address this challenge or mitigate the challenge? Through standardized training processes that supports efficient growth and allows personnel to transition into their roles in a safe and efficient way. Aviation training is considered a support function of ICAO. So I'm going to begin by talking to you about how GAT supports capacity building at a higher level, and then we're going to drill down and look at the tools and the processes that we use to support this goal. Traditional approaches to training focuses on individual learning and individual learning outcomes, which is a very viable and reasonable thing to do, but it doesn't look at organizational goals and it doesn't address systemic or industry-wide goals and requirements. So there are many definitions of capacity building, but what they all have in common is they look at the big picture. They're looking forward and forecasting and seeking to unite the aviation community and work towards the future needs. Why do we need to focus on capacity building? Well, given the scale of the challenge that we face, it would be, we would fail if we didn't address it. It's an absolutely critical requirement. And capacity building is a multifaceted activity with many tasks, many players, many stakeholders, and training is not engaged in all of them, but it is engaged in the ones that are highlighted, the transfer of knowledge, skills, and attitudes, or what we call competencies, to close future gaps, human resource development, and the monitoring and evaluating of the results of the training. And the last one is particularly important because you have to ensure continually that the benchmarks that you have set are indeed in line with the forecasts. So the forecasts might change as you move forward, so this is a critical element. So how do you know if training actually is supporting capacity building? It has to respond to 3 criteria. It needs to be anchored in a strategic plan that takes into account capacity building and future requirements. It needs to be competency-based, meaning not knowledge-focused and not theory-focused, but more job orientation and a performance orientation. And finally, it needs to be standardized in the development and the delivery. This ensures that trainees taking the course have shared competencies at the end of the training that are recognized and transferable, which promotes a more mobile workforce. ICAO has launched the concept of aviation training intelligence. has been developed to help states and training organizations globally develop a strategic plan and support capacity building. It's made up of 8 elements, and it's predicated on the notion that we have so much data coming at us now that we have to be able to discern and extract of all that data what is decision useful. What of all this data is actually going to support decision making that allows us to inform what our strategic plan will be, which will support capacity building. This notion is based on 8 elements, and I just want to note that each one of these elements has tools and methodologies within it that allow you to extract what is important in each of these elements for your organization. And I'm only going to touch on it, but we do have a course called Managing Aviation Training Intelligence, which supports the use of this model. So I'll touch on each of the 8 elements. There is iSTAR, which allows you to have an appreciation. It's a web-based tool that allows you to have an appreciation of what the existing situation is in aviation today and how it applies to your circumstance. There's ICAO Data Plus, which are data sets which allow you to filter and be able to address what your aviation forecast, what your future needs might be based on information collected. There's the TPAMS, which is the Train Air Plus Electronic Management System, which has courses. If you've already established what your training needs are, you can determine if there's already an existing course in TPAMS. If you're not sure of your specific training needs and you would like to perform a training needs analysis, we have a web-based tool that takes you through each of the steps. If you did not find the course that suits your training needs on TPAMS, you might look at the Aviation Training and Education Directory for further courses. If you find that there isn't a course that matches the requirements that you've established, you might need to develop a course, and then we would point you towards the Instructional Systems Design Methodology for competency-based training. If the information that you're seeking is based on a course that you are already conducting, but you want to have a measure of what the impact of this course is, you could perform a post-training evaluation. And finally, there's the human resources development. You'd need one of the last element is to determine if the activities of the human resources department are actually aligned with the Civil Aviation Authority's master plan. Now, each one of these elements in isolation wouldn't allow you to develop a strategic plan, but if you survey the landscape and review each of these 8 elements, you would be able to develop a strategic plan that allows you to contribute to capacity building. So this is the big picture. I'm now going to look at the tools, methodologies, and processes that we use in order to fulfill these objectives. So we're going to look at the web-based tool that allows you to walk through a training needs analysis, the methodology that we use for the instructional system design methodology that supports our development of competency-based training, the TPAMS, which we touched upon earlier, and the standardized qualification procedures and the standardized post-training evaluation. So if you don't know what your training needs are, or you think you know what they are, but you'd like to have them validated, we offer a web-based tool that allows you to walk through the steps of a training needs analysis. This begins at the beginning, where you look at the organizational performance analysis. You identify what the performance problem is and what the impact of this problem might be. There's a job analysis, and then you're walked through to gather further data from stakeholders, analyze the data, and determine if it's a training issue or a non-training issue. And at the end of this process, a report is generated that summarizes the information that was collected during the process, and there's a recommendation. It points you towards the ICAO training catalog into areas where there might into the specific area where you might find the course that matches the need that has been identified, or the Aviation Training Education Directory. And if neither of these places you're able to find a course, you would be directed towards the Trainair Plus methodology for instructional systems design methodology for developing competency-based training. So this is our bread and butter. This is the methodology we use to ensure that our training is sound and that it meets the objectives that are set at the beginning. The first stage is an analysis. What we mean by this is essentially identifying what the performance gap is and what the ideal performance is, and then identifying the competencies or the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that are required to get from the current performance to the desired performance. In stage 2, there's the selection of the training strategies and the design and the development of the modules and the curriculum. So that is our development stage. The third stage is evaluation, and it's a little misleading to have it here as a discrete stage, as one of the strengths and the hallmarks of this methodology is that there's a continual evaluation. There's a feedback loop. You're constantly looking at each stage and assessing it and improving it and refining it as you go along. But once you have a course that is ready for delivery, there's a dry run, or also called a validation delivery. Again, feedback is taken from this and reintegrated into the course. And finally, we use the Kirkpatrick model of evaluation to determine from our learners what their reaction is, if they like the course, if they learn from the course, if the course changed their performance on the job, and if that change in performance affected the organization. So that is our instructional system design methodology. Now, this methodology, you'll see, is reflected in TPAMs. One of the ways that we stay honest with this methodology is when we develop courses, each of those stages are listed, and you cannot move from one stage to the next until you've completed the previous one. So it ensures that every step is taken to completion. TPAMs is a tool that was developed for Trainair Plus members in order to share and collaborate. We, as I mentioned, develop training packages. We also share training packages on TPAMs. You can access a roster of validators and instructors, and the system also produces certificates and dispatches trainee questionnaires. We mentioned that standardization is one of the key ways that GAT is able to support capacity building, because everything that we do, we've tried to create standards so there's an efficiency, consistency, and reliability both internally and as we deliver courses. So if you would like to apply to be a course developer, subject matter expert, course validator, or instructor, the applications are on TPAMs, accessible in the public area of the site. But there's standardized requirements, and this ensures that anybody who is involved with ICAO courseware is at the same level, same understandings, and speaking the same language. I'd mentioned that evaluation is one of the hallmarks of the instructional systems design methodology, and the standardized post-training evaluation that we include is a part of this as well. During a course, we do have an evaluation after each module and at the end of the course to get the trainees' impressions. But 3 to 6 months after the completion of the course, the trainees are sent a questionnaire that allows them to self-evaluate how their performance has changed since they took the course. Additionally, their supervisors are sent a similar questionnaire to evaluate if their direct report who took the training, if their performance has changed. There is a weighted impact index that is calculated using 15 indicators in 6 dimensions using 2 evaluation areas. And that calculation allows you to really assess what the impact of the training is on your organization. And it's very useful for us at GAT because we look at trends, and if we see an area that there's some dips, we can address it, and otherwise we are able to really measure the impact of the training that we deliver. In addition to these methodologies and tools that I have spoken to you of, GAT also develops training competencies through courses that we have specifically for course developers, instructors, managers, and validators. You can note through the descriptions of the items that the strategies that we use, there are absolutely benefits to the standardization. Our course offerings are standardized. They produce enhanced performance on the job. The collaborative efforts that we have and the sharing of information allows a reduction of duplication of effort. And finally, there's an emphasis on collaboration. So as we address the challenge of the forecasted growth in aviation, we really seek to work together to address it. Individually, we can't make an impact, but together we absolutely can. I've touched upon some of the contributions that GAT provides to capacity building, but you're more than welcome to come and meet our implementation team at our booth just outside this room. Discover more about our programs, schedule bilateral meetings with TCB and GAT senior management, and provide us feedback to help us improve our services. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you, Vicky. So for more information, please make sure to contact MCR at ICAO.int or go visit Vicky at the Trainer Plus booth right outside the Assembly Hall. Thank you.